If you've felt years of bracing, even when nothing's wrong, if you've had body pain, can't even relax on good days, you're passing tension to your kid, it's one state showing up in different places. So stay to the end, and I'll tell you what to do next and whether this working together is a fit. So a little bit about me, about my backstory. I had a hip injury at 16, went to 6 to 9 months of physical therapy, and the only takeaway I got was to stretch, wait, and hope. Then it became clear that I needed something else, not someone else. I needed a whole other paradigm of recovery entirely. Several years later, I would end up hospitalized for my autoimmune condition with only one dermatologist at the top hospital, one of the top hospitals in the world. They discharged me with a steroid cream and said good luck. The flares would cover my wrists, my elbows, my neck, sometimes my legs. And I would live with this chronic anxiety of needing to be ER ready, that I would have to go back at a moment's notice. And with this practice I developed with tree breathing, the flares are now very rare, or at most contained to one finger at a time. Every time there's a flare, it's just that one pinky, not my whole body. For me, healing the body and regulating the nervous system were never two separate problems for me. Then in my early 20s, I had what sounded and felt like sleep apnea. My mouth would be dry when I'd wake up. I would hear myself and wake up from the sound of snoring. And I just felt tired, more tired waking up than when I went to sleep. And this was something that felt minor at the time, but as it went on, it was clear that it wasn't minor. This was an early sign of the same dysregulation I had before. This idea of a root cause solution versus paying for it later was entering my mind as I dealt with these problems. Either I deal with it now or it compounds the suffering later. During times when I could actually regulate my nervous system, I would do jujitsu, something I enjoyed. But as I did it, I would develop chronic pain and tightness feeding this anxiety instead of relieving it with the practice. I'd be afraid to push my body. I would try to go to sleep and feel my heartbeat and my whole body throbbing. And after 2 panic attacks that pushed me into deep insomnia through the night, hours and hours, this is the bracing state I'm describing to you right now, from the inside and not from a diagram. I know what it's like to think this is just who you are, that you're broken, that you have a nervous system that doesn't respond to the world well, and it isn't. You're probably closer to that than you think. That realization. So the problem is almost everyone who comes to me is in low grade anxiety and fear, and they mistake me for their personality. And it is a physical thing, not just emotional. It changes the breathing, it changes how your body manages pressure, it changes how you move. The chronic pain is just the loudest symptom, it's not the cause. If you fix the symptom without the state, it resurfaces everywhere else. If you can't stand and breathe without effort, that your body feels wrong, it's because no one ever taught you how to feel good in your own body or breathe well. So, managing does not equal leaving this state of anxiety and fear. You can get good at looking regulated, not being regulated. This costs you your presence with the people you love, real rest versus rest that you just get to because you're exhausted. I'm familiar with that. Just doing jujitsu, I would train multiple times a week, and it felt like that was the only way I could get to sleep. fully exhausting myself, mentally and physically. And for parents, kids learn regulation from your nervous system, from your behavior, not your words. This is evidently true for my own parents, what I learned, and from what I observed continuously. And just as an example, with the mother I've helped, she did what she knew, but no one gave her this tool early on to train her body and her breath in this way to feel regulated in a lasting effect. And if mothers had this process early on, it would have spared very real and meaningful suffering. From my own perspective, my mother did what she knew, but no one didn't give her tools to manage her breath, her posture, and her pressure in her body well. I believe if she had this, she would have been spared a lot of suffering in her life, a lot of suffering of those around her as well. And that's part of why I built this for parents specifically, because I want to give the parents and the kids an experience that I didn't have, of a regulated parent that has the tools to be present and have capacity to care for their child emotionally and physically. So you're not broken. You've just never been shown how to leave the state of managing your pain. So here's how it works. There are 4 structures in the body that create this container that is your deep core. And they function as like a hydraulic system, right? Through pressure. These structures are your diaphragm, your transverse abdominals, your pelvic floor, and your multifidus. And these form, the diaphragm forms the roof, the transverse abdominals forms the sides and the fronts, the pelvic floor forms the bottom, the floor, and the multifidus forms the back along your spine. This is your pressure canister. It's going to pop up somewhere here for a few seconds. You can pause or take a look however you like. But this is not just a structural thing. This is wired into your nervous system. Regulating pressure, thereby creating stability through that regulation, is a safety signal to your body, to your nervous system, interacting with the world, with gravity, with not spending a lot of effort standing and breathing. A dysregulated system defaults to bracing as a baseline. Your hip, your jaw, your back, all these pains, they share a common pattern, but just are different signs, different places of this stability failing, and your nervous system reacting to that threat. So this is the solution. Tree breathing. Pretend you're a tree. I have a video on that on my page somewhere. And this is just an introduction to the concept. Rather than a million modalities, interventions, making your own Frankenstein methodology, this is what has worked for me, for many others, for various conditions to dramatically improve. For scoliosis, for asthma, for sleep apnea, but most importantly, regulating yourself, going from a fearful, anxious state to an anchored resource state, and having that show physically in your pain, in your posture, and moving more fluidly, more smoothly, and having that show, that physical sign, reflect emotionally. You can't think your way into calmness. You can retrain your physical system and signal calmness and resourceness into the body. That's when it becomes embodied, internalized, not just commanded. I'm going to insert the example here. I'm going to cut the video and splice that in here. And you can follow along however you'd like. I would recommend doing this on a mostly empty stomach. And I would recommend doing it multiple times until you feel a difference. Do it at least 3 times before you turn off the video and continue on with your life. And I want to share one deep story after that, while you're letting the sensations settle. Maybe give a moment to notice what's changed. But for this example, for this mother, her name is Sumi. She had migraines, incontinence, pelvic floor issues, a 10 centimeter diastasis recti gap, which is split abs not coming back together after childbirth for the men, or men and women that may not know that condition. And she reported that she felt it close by our 5th session. So not better, but dramatically improved enough to feel that it's closed. And so the migraine, the pelvic floor, the jaw, her sleep, all these things would improve by training her pressure systems. Conventionally, each of these things would need their own intervention. It would be a job in itself to manage the pain. But this methodology is a way to get to the roots. I know that term is overused, your root cause interventions. But the root of your body organizing itself is by pressure. However you get there, with tools, with training, with surgery, with devices, it doesn't matter. Your body's going to organize by pressure. So the physical results are downstream of the nervous system no longer needed to brace. And the training is what facilitated that. And another example, just quickly, is a lumbar curve straightening, so scoliosis, and reduced pain with consistent practice. I'll pop that up somewhere over here or over here, I don't know, we'll edit this later. And a lot of these things are pains that people typically believe they're going to live with for the rest of their life, or are conditioned to believe that. Some people are told it explicitly, some people build the belief over time, over losing hope for these piecewise interventions. I'm here to tell you that you can reverse and fix these problems if you're willing. One last example is a man, to round this out. This is kind of their typical example. Those two are very dedicated clients. This last one is kind of your more average result, just to give you an idea. He came to me because he had knee and ankle pain that was preventing him from playing soccer with his kid. So a very meaningful result that we could strive for. But as we went on, as we trained, he not only was able to play soccer and start mountain biking, being more active, without worrying about his body breaking down, he also started to reverse his sleep apnea. He started to notice that he was mouth breathing during the day anymore. And so after 3 months, we stopped training, but that was only 3 months of progress, that to stop mouth breathing and not be in pain. So as time would go on, if we continued working, he would reverse that sleep apnea altogether. This is kind of the trend here, that all these pains are not a separate thing. They are your pressure system being dysregulated and resulting downstream in that pain, maybe over months, maybe over years, whatever the timeline is. They all share that root in your body's ability to handle pressure. So what comes after? For some of these people, the pain goes away, but that's just partway through your life. Your life still goes on even after the pain goes away. And even after you get busy with life, you get distracted, you become more consistent with your routine or your practices, you may feel some version of the pain return even. It's a terrible way to sell my services, but this is the truth. At some point you realize you didn't heal as deeply as you thought you did. or the healing can go so much deeper. So it's important to picture life on the other side, where it's not just the pain being gone, but a real day, a real version of yourself that you could picture that is acting in the world joyfully without the pain. And if you can't picture that, that's okay. That's just showing how stuck you are in your pain, not just physically, but mentally too. That's what this call is for, is to call out the part of yourself that believes healing is possible, that believes your body can affect your mind, that believes that there is a much better solution than what you've been given. So, just want to round this out by giving you an example of the cost of waiting. Every month, managing instead of resolving is more practice bracing your body and feeding into those patterns of pain. Bracing long enough stops feeling like a state and starts feeling like an identity. If there's a kid watching with you, the clock runs for both of you. And I'll be real. My capacity is very limited. This is a very deep, very one-to-one, high-touch methodology. And I can only comfortably train 5 to 8 people at a time. Maximum 10. So this is not some scarcity marketing. I'm just being real that I can't pretend I can train 20 people at a time and keep track of all these progress reports and results and meaningfully nurture that relationship. This is about creating a healthier future for you and your family and your children. This is not about learning a new technique. Point blank, period. There's 2 options. You've got the hardship option, which is just 4 sessions. You can only get those once. There is no exception. None. This is for $600, and this is for becoming independent by the end of the sessions, that you can complete the process yourself. You have just enough to teach your kid to regulate, and you can get to an anchored resource state reliably with the practice. The other option is the transformation option. So this is a year-long option. This is $6,000. And I want you to listen to these words. I want you to forget the money cost I just said. I want you to listen to these words right here. This option, this is actually only the price for the first 3 clients, but sorry, this option is transformation, because this result is aimed at getting you embodied and internalized in this anchored resource state. If you did the practice earlier earnestly, you should have tapped into a completely unfamiliar state of calm in your body and mind. And that state is only going to be momentary. And it's only going to last minutes at a time, maybe even hours if you're super serious about the practice. But it will not be the default state. So this year-long relationship is about making that state default, is about not being anxious and fearful by default, but resourced and anchored in your body, in your breath. The pain resolves as a byproduct. It is not the main objective. The main objective is that you are fully equipped to teach your kid to internalize this state as well. And it doesn't take 12 months to know how to do that, but it takes 12 months for you to accept a new identity and to overwrite a lifetime of fear and anxiety. And the physical practice is very simple. It is very straightforward. The actual integrating into your life, on a calendar, it takes 15 minutes a day. In its actuality, you'll face stress. You'll come across events and relationships that dysregulate you, that put you back into a fearful, anxious state. And on the other side, this process is the bridge to an anchored and resource state that you tell me how you're implementing it, how you're noticing it is helping you, how you're becoming more regulated over time in ways that I couldn't even imagine. That is the point of the year. Neither is a quick fix. It's for people who are done managing and are ready to resolve some problems and pain. These are for consistent people willing to participate and are done chasing single symptoms. Here's who is disqualified to participate in this relationship. This is not a passive practice. It is a practice. It is not something done to you. It is something we do together. It is not isolated symptom chasing. This is whole system training every time. This is a relationship. If it's not life-giving, if you're not in it, if it's not meaningful to pursue an anxious, if it's not meaningful to pursue an anchored resource state and get out of a fearful, anxious state, then that relationship will not be life-giving and we cannot work together. I'll be honest about what's possible, and you'll be honest about if you can even picture something better than your life right now. No hard feelings if it's not a fit. Plenty of good symptoms-based practitioners out there. And with that, think about the next 6 months, next year, of being in the same place, having this conversation with another symptoms-based practitioner, and what that might look like, what that might feel like. Really sit in it. Picture it in your head. Really figure out if you're ready for a meaningful change that isn't just to survive the short term. Again, no hard feelings if you're not ready. But this practice is for those who are. You spent long enough bracing. Let's get you anchored.